You think you know people? Think again. There are all kinds of mind-blowing psychological studies revealing just how weird and irrational humans can be. Here are 11 shocking psychological facts about people that will make you question everything. 1. Your future feelings can be predicted by reading your muscles. Imagine playing a game where you have to choose between two doors, one leading to an enjoyable snack and the other to an unpleasant pungent odor spray. Scientists discovered that by measuring participants' facial muscles as they considered their choice, they could predict what decision someone would make before the person was even aware of their own decision. The subtle movements of certain facial muscles corresponded to anticipated emotional reactions. So, in essence, people's brains were already leaning towards the rewarding or aversive outcome before consciously contemplating the decision itself. Your body knows how you'll feel before your mind does. 2. Looking at color can change your perception of weight. In one experiment, participants were asked to hold two identically weighted boxes. However, one box had a red cover while the other was white. A striking majority of people estimated that the red box felt heavier than the white one. It seems our brains can't help but associate certain colors with metaphorical concepts of heavy and light. Red is a passionate, intense hue that our mind translates into subjective experiences of greater weight and density compared to neutral tones like white. So, the next time you need to haul boxes, you may want to slap some white duct tape on them to trick your mind into perceiving a lighter load. 3. People are terrible at deciding what will make them happy. You'd think after decades of personal experience, people would have a decent grasp of what will make them happy or unhappy in their daily lives. But psychological research shows the opposite. People are remarkably terrible at affective forecasting or predicting their future emotional states. In one study, researchers gave one group of people a small gift, and the other group received nothing. They then asked both groups to predict how happy they would feel at a later date. The people who received no gift incorrectly predicted they would be less happy than those who did get a gift. However, when checked again on that later date, both groups reported feeling equally happy. This shows that people overestimate how emotionally impactful one-time events and material things will be on their overall well-being. The implications are profound. Humans are not very skilled at determining what will make us truly happy over the long term. We may be chasing goals that won't bring us as much joy as we envision. 4. Holding a warm beverage can make you warmer towards others. In a fascinating set of experiments, researchers had people briefly hold either a hot beverage or a cold beverage, then evaluated their personality impressions of someone described in a vignette. The results showed that those who held the warm beverage rated the person as having a warmer personality, more generous, caring, and friendly, whereas those with the icy drinks perceived the exact same person as being much colder, distant, and unlikable. The effect was subtle, but unmistakable. The tactile sensation of warm temperature was unconsciously translating into metaphorically warmer judgments of someone's character and personality. This just goes to show how heavily our psychology relies on physical metaphors for abstract concepts like interpersonal warmth. So, always order a hot tea or coffee before your next big date. 5. Excessive hand washing can traumatize you over time. While proper hygiene is wise, psychological research indicates that excessive hand washing as a control ritual can ultimately cause more harm than good. Repeated hand washing leads to a vicious cycle. Each time you do it, it reaffirms the anxiety-inducing belief that your hands must be unclean, filthy, and in need of washing again soon. Over time, your brain becomes hypersensitized to contamination fears, and you can develop traumatic memories linked to the hands and washing sensations. This worsens obsessive-compulsive tendencies and germophobic behaviors, as excessive hand washers find it increasingly difficult to assuage their anxieties. For those struggling with hand-washing compulsions, psychological exposure therapy may be needed to break the self-reinforcing cycle. Moderation is key to avoiding traumatizing consequences. 6. Being in a crowded room can override your sense of fairness. A classic experiment demonstrated how external environmental factors like population density can majorly influence human morality and decision-making. Researchers had people play an economic game that measured their propensity to make fair or unfair financial offers to others. People playing the game in an uncrowded room exhibited normal preferences for fairness and equity. However, when the exact same game was played in a crowded room with many people milling about, participants were much more likely to make unfair financial offers that benefited themselves at others' expense. The findings suggest that crowded living conditions and overpopulation may lead people to override ethical or moral inclinations in favor of greed, selfishness, and thinking only of themselves. Oxytocin and empathy levels are dampened when surrounded by too many people jostling to survive. 7. Your posture influences your thoughts, emotions, and hormones. Based on the famous power posing studies, simply holding certain body postures can significantly influence your psychological state, confidence levels, and even hormone production. Expansive, open postures caused people's testosterone, linked to assertiveness, to spike, while cortisol, the stress hormone, dropped. Meanwhile, contractive postures like crossing arms or slouching had the opposite effect: lower testosterone and higher circulating cortisol levels. The researchers likened it to how animals will instinctually make themselves appear bigger or smaller depending on their situational roles and confidence. Amazingly, these mind-body effects from power posing lasted even after the postures were no longer being held. The implications suggest controlling your body positioning could provide psychological and physiological self-help benefits by altering your mental state and hormonal regime. So, if you need a quick confidence boost, find a private space to bask in a victorious arms-raised power pose for just 2 minutes. Your inner neurochemistry will thank you. 8. Political preferences could come down to a single protein. While political ideologies seem intractable and rooted in firm ethical philosophies, research indicates they may depend on something as basic as a neurotransmitter protein in the brain. In one study, scientists showed that the presence of a certain dopamine receptor protein, DRD47R, was correlated with a person's self-reported conservative views and preferences for tradition over reform. People with more of this dopamine receptor were around 20% more likely to identify as politically conservative. The protein is thought to influence novelty-seeking and anxiety responses in the brain. Less adventurous personalities may gravitate more towards tradition versus progressive change due to their brain's dopamine systems. Of course, environment plays a huge role as well in shaping political beliefs, but the findings raise questions of how much our ideologies are shaped by factors entirely outside of logic or pure reason, instead being subconsciously nudged by our individual brain biochemistries. Food for thought. 9. Music can be more mind-altering than drugs. While psychoactive drugs obviously cause powerful cognitive and neurochemical effects, music can produce surprisingly similar brain activity patterns. Researchers at Harvard found that listening to a subject's favorite songs prompted mass neurological firing across numerous regions linked to emotion, memory, motor control, and higher reasoning. In fact, certain songs were able to engage more areas of the brain than even marijuana or antidepressant medications. The personal meaning and memories we attach to music seem to ignite whole brain resonance in ways drugs cannot. Music's profound effects on consciousness, perception, and feelings help explain why it has been revered across cultures for thousands of years. Those resonant melodies and rhythms are quite literally mind-altering to our neurochemistry. So, the next time someone questions if music can be as powerful as substances, just remind them tunes like Bohemian Rhapsody or Imagine are basically getting you high on life. 10. People subconsciously judge books by their smell. While conventional wisdom is to never judge a book by its cover, research shows most people do exactly that. But in regards to how the book actually smells, in several experiments, participants rated identical books wildly differently based solely on experimenters adding artificial scents to the pages. Books given the ambient smell of domestic ambient household scents like furniture polish were perceived as much older and less interesting than the exact same books scented with more exotic spice rack fragrances like cinnamon or mustard powder. Pretentious as it sounds, it seems people gravitate toward tomes that seem to have an older and more mysterious aroma. Our reptilian sense of smell heavily influences our cerebral impressions, even for something as conceptual as judging literature. 11. Dim lighting makes you get crankier and crankier. While moody lighting may feel cozy and relaxing in the moment, it has insidious psychological impacts over time. Research on office environments found that workers subjected to dimmer lighting and lack of windows progressively developed more negative mood states and chronic fatigue as weeks went on. Dim lighting depletes behavioral cues that set the brain's daytime circadian rhythms. Our mind-body system becomes confused and stressed when environmental signals don't sync up with our evolved biological patterns for light-dark cycles. Over time, the improperly regulated circadian system goes into disarray, inflating emotional disturbances and irritability. Too much darkness literally puts your mind into perma-night mode, destabilizing hormones and neurotransmitters into foul weather patterns. The solution? Make sure your work and home environments get copious natural daylight or very bright artificial bulbs. Your sunny disposition depends on it. There you have it. 11 utterly shocking, mind-bending facts about the psychological depths of human nature. You'll never look at people the same way again after glimpsing the weird forces that quietly shape our experiences and behaviors behind the scenes. Just remember, you're every bit as susceptible to these irrational quirks and biases as anyone else. By unpacking the computational mistakes hardwired into the human mind, at least you know thine enemy when it comes to making sound decisions. Just be prepared for people to look at you sideways whenever you caution against dim lighting or insist they keep reintroducing themselves. But hey, at least you'll have the last laugh as the sole rational being in a world of quirky psychological peculiarities. If you have made it this far, let us know what you think in the comments section below. For more interesting topics, make sure you watch the recommended video that you see on the screen right now. Thanks for watching.